You can only manage what you can measure. Although this is a very old saying, it could have been written specifically in reference to the transparency process to support the implementation and tracking of nationally determined contributions, the NDCs. Because there's no country on earth that can ensure achievement of its NDC targets without the right data. Transparency is vital for the NDC process from start to finish. Through transparency, countries can plan and design NDCs, develop policies and measures and assess their impacts. Thirdly, manage implementation, especially the engagement of stakeholders and the mobilization of finance. Fourthly, track progress. And finally, evaluate implementation in order to update the NDCs, strengthening their targets. In this way, countries can create a better understanding of all impacts of the NDCs, including those on sustainable development priorities, in order to minimize the negative impacts and maximize the positive ones. Transparency allows countries to strengthen their NDCs and increase their ambition, leading to stronger, more effective and more transformational climate action to advance both national development targets and global climate goals. Under the enhanced transparency framework established through the Paris Agreement, all parties will submit biannual transparency reports, the BTRs, every 2 years, starting in 2024. In the BTR, they will have to provide the information necessary to track progress in implementing and achieving their NDC. NDC tracking is at the core of the BTR. The BTR requires reporting on progress with the NDCs, including on institutional arrangements in place to track progress made in implementing and achieving the NDC, on national circumstances, to provide a description of the NDC, including updates, targets, indicators, reference points, timeframes, scope, and coverage. Information on mitigation actions, policies, and measures, including the co-benefits from adaptation actions, which is critical to show how a country intends to achieve the change required to meet NDC targets. Furthermore, they have to report on the intention to use cooperative approaches that will involve the use of internationally transferred mitigation outcomes under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. They have to provide a summary of the greenhouse gas emissions and removals and information on their projections and some other information. To ensure that countries can report on all these elements, but also to reap all the benefits at the domestic level that transparency for NDC can offer, countries should put in place an NDC tracking framework as part of a continuous process in a way that firstly engages national stakeholders, secondly allows for learning and course correction, and thirdly puts countries in a position of control, fully able to assess, manage and track progress on their climate targets. So transparency on the NDC implementation brings benefits both at the national level and in linking the collective efforts at the global scale.
Several tools, methodologies, and other resources are available to support countries in their efforts to track their NDCs in the ICCAT toolbox. In terms of NDC tracking tools, we firstly have the Greenhouse Gas Abatement Cost Model, or GASMO, developed by the UNEP Copenhagen Climate Centre and further expanded with ICCAT support. It is an Excel-based tool that countries can use to assess the different mitigation options in terms of their cost and their GHG impacts. GASMO has been expanded so that it can be used to monitor the reductions in GHG levels achieved through the implementation of mitigation options. And in doing so, it can support countries to track their progress in implementing and achieving their NDCs. It is free to use and available in English and French. The Transport Climate Action Data Tool, TRACAD, was developed by ICAT and Climate SI and provides countries with a tool to streamline the process of collecting and managing data on mitigation actions in the transport sector. It provides countries with several functionalities, supporting the assessment of the impact of climate actions and the monitoring and tracking of climate actions, which can also be used in the design and tracking of NDCs. The TRACAD tool is an open source, software-based tool that is free to use and can be applied and tailored according to individual country needs. Both tools are accessible through the ICAT website. In order to support the development or ex ante and evaluation or ex post of policies and measures to implement NDCs, ICAT has also developed the ICAT series of policy assessment guides. Effective climate policies are key to achieving NDC targets. The ICAT policy assessment guides are a set of practical methodologies that support countries to assess the impacts of climate policies and actions. The assessment guides will help policymakers understand how policies and measures impact NDC achievement and how to ensure effective integration into national development planning. They can help countries track progress in implementation and further develop their NDCs towards enhanced ambition. The assessment guides can also help provide the necessary information for domestic and international reporting, such as through the biannual transparency reports, the first of which is due in 2024. The assessments can support areas such as estimating baseline emissions, estimating policy impacts, and monitoring progress in implementation over time. Through the assessments, countries acquire information that can be used to improve policy design and assist in the mobilization of finance. There are 10 guides in the ICAT series of policy assessment guides, and these can be used either separately or in combination. These include 5 guides to assess GHG impacts in different areas and sectors, and these are agriculture, renewable energy, transport pricing, forestry, and buildings efficiency. There are also 3 cross-cutting impact assessment guides covering sustainable development, transformational change, and non-state and subnational actions, and 2 complementary process guides addressing stakeholder participation and technical review. Another helpful resource in the ICAT toolbox is the paper Development of Indicators, Proposed Indicators for Domestic MRV Purposes and Tracking Progress of NDCs, developed for ICAT by the Italian Institute for Environmental Protection and Research, or ISPRA. It provides countries with relevant examples of indicators which may be used for domestic monitoring and for reporting on progress towards NDC implementation. You can discover all these tools and resources on the ICAT website.